Okay, so we're going to kind of jump right into it. Lab 11. Um, really, it's kind of one of those just tricky ones, but there's not a whole ton of work. So, real quick, I just kind of want to go over what we're actually going to do, and I hope that everyone got the chance to read the announcement this week. Um, I guess if you didn't, we're going to talk about it here in just a minute, anyways. But in the announcement, I kind of posted a little picture that kind of showed how merges work. So that's kind of what we're doing in this lab. Is we're using a new statement called a merge statement. Um, and what a merge statement does is it basically merges data together, it's specifically two tables. Um, and we'll go over that in a little bit. In fact, I'm going to pull up the actual thing here. So for this lab, we're going to use the queries that we created in Lab 10. So really, if you're done with Lab 10, most of this work is actually already done for you. We just kind of got to put it in a shell. And so if I open up the stuff here, he actually gives you a little bit of what that shell looks like. Now, the hard part is a lot of times it can get a little tricky because we have embedded queries, this, that, all sorts of fun stuff. So anyways, what we're going to do is we are going to kind of go over that just a little bit today. But first, I really want to talk about what merges do, and then we'll hit the lab. So let me get that pulled up here. All right, so this is in the announcement if you ever want to come back to it. But what I did is I kind of built some fake tables here per se, and made it merge. Right, so we're going to pretend that I have two tables, and these are not named very appropriately, but one table is called existing and the other table is called importing. And then this one down here is just what we get after the merge, which is really technically existing. In fact, I'll put that in there. The new existing. So as you can see over here, we start out with a table that's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, right? And we've got Harry Potter with 12 credits, Hermione Granger with 18 credits, Ronald Weasley with 12 credits, and Neville Longbottom 12 credits, Luna Lovegood 12 credits. And basically the idea here is, let's say we have a table that keeps track of the total number of credits that each student has. And let's say that we import that from an external system, whatever. I don't know what Hogwarts uses or whatever, but we're just going to pretend that they use some sort of external system and we CSV import, just like what we're doing here, right? We take records from transaction upload and we're going to put them into transaction. Now, it's not as easy as just saying, oh, insert these rows, right? Because the problem is we're going to pretend that we have some rows that may have already been there or are the same thing. So the difference is that when we do an insert, we would have Harry Potter just get repeated, right? Because he's already in here once. And then he's going to come in again. So what we want to do is we want to kind of be smart about it, right? We want to say, look, if they're new, we want to insert them. If they're already existing, we just want to update them, right? So what we're going to do here is we're going to take a look at how this happens. So over here is the actual query, and you'll say that it says merge into importing as source. Now we know that the as is just a way to give the table an alias, right? So you'll notice this in all his, he has target and source, and all that fun stuff. And in fact, I think I have this a little backwards. I do have this backwards. We want to say merge into existing as target using source, or using importing as source. And then we match them. right? The rest of this should be good. So we're going to merge into existing. Existing is kind of like our permanent table, right? And we're going to use importing to merge into. It's a little confusing that way, but just imagine that we have existing as like our base table, and we want to kind of meld importing into it, right? Kind of like as if you're shuffling a deck of cards, kind of a thing, except for we want to update and not just insert. And so how do we know? Kind of just like a join, right? It's like a join, but instead of just gluing these two records side by side, like in the case of Harry Potter, instead of just like putting them side by side, we kind of want to like actually like make a permanent change, right? And so how do we match it? Well, just like the joins, we use this on subclause. So we say, look, we want to match on the person ID for both tables. So what it's going to do is it's going to come through here and it's going to check to see if there's any matches. So in this case, we're going to say when matched, then. So let's say it's hitting here. So it says, okay, 1001, 1001. Okay, we've got a match. So what do? Well, when matched, then we update and we set target.credits equals source.credits. So we're going to take this 12 and we're going to set it equal to the source credit, so 16. So there's our result, and you can see that here it did an update. So then we're going to go to the next one. We hit 1002. Well, guess what? Here's a match. So when matched, we are going to update the credits. It was 18. We're going to update it to 22. Boom. So we got an update. So now we're going to come here and it says, okay, existing 1005 is the person ID. Well, we don't have a 1005 in here. Now there is some cool things you could do. For example, you could say, oh, that's not what I wanted at all. Okay, what did I do? There we go. There are some more things you can do. So like, and I don't want to go too crazy into this because it really doesn't matter right now, but you can say when target and not source, stuff like that. And then we could actually delete and all this other stuff we're not going to worry about right now. Just know that since it doesn't meet any of the criteria because it's not matched, and it's not matched, but it doesn't have a match at all. So because it's an existing, so nothing actually happens to Ronald Weasley, right? He just stays there, stays the same. So I'm going to skip some of these and let's go down to here. So we made it all the way through here, Luna, Lovegood, blah, blah, blah. But then we get here and we have rows that are in the importing table, the new table, but not the base table. And so, well, we have when not matched and insert. So then we can say, okay, just take this exactly how it is and put it in here. And you can see that we do when not matched and insert person ID, first name, last name, credits, source, blah, blah, blah. It just inserts the values in there. So then we're done. So in the end, we end up with 2 extra rows for the 2 new ones. So that's what a merge does. It kind of just, like it says, it kind of just merges them all in there together. Right. So let's take a look at the actual lab. So basically that's what we're going to do here. And we've done this before. So in lab 10, you actually already went through this, right? You did the insert. So that's kind of nice because you actually have the insert statements. The reason we're going to do this is because we want this to be able to run over and over and over again, right? Now, if we use the query that we from lab 10, our insert statements, we actually would end up with duplicate rows. And some of you might have seen that. If you ran it multiple times without the cleanup script, you could get a lot of rows really fast because we're inserting like 11,000 rows, right? And so what this will do is this will let us run it over and over without actually even cleaning it up, and we will always end up with the same number of rows after merge because guess what? The first time we run it, it's going to insert, right? It's going to insert like 11,000 something rows. But then the next time we run it, it's not going to insert them. It's going to just try to update them, right? So that's what we're going to do. So let me actually let's get logged in here. Let's open up one of these. And we want a terminal and some files. All right, so I'm actually going to open up our lab 10 because that's kind of where we're going to start here from. All right, so here I have a lab 10 that's all done, right? And then I'm actually going to open up a lab 11, and I'm actually going to create a new text file, and we're going to call this demo lab 11.sql. We're going to open up this. So I'm going to get logged in. Well, let me get to the file first. Data or CIT 225 Oracle Lab 11. I'm just going to run my lab 10 file real quick since I haven't done that yet. And there it goes. All right. So this is where you should have ended up at the end of our lab 10, right? We have all of our lab 10 done. So now what we're going to do is we are going to actually do a little bit of lab 11. So I'm just going to, I'm still in Python mode. Lab 11. So step one is we do the inserts into merge into rental. All right, that's our first one. So if we look at the instructions here, it says you can use the following statement shell for the rental table as a template. So I'm actually going to take and copy this in here just like this. I'm just going to take this. And I'm going to put it right in there. And that is not the right thing to copy. Let's try again. Copy and paste, and still not the same. Let's make sure my settings are good here. Yeah, should be. Might just need to update. So anyways, I'm going to type it by hand, then I actually, no, let's just load it up here. We'll just get it off right here. All right. There we go. Okay, so now we have our base little thing here. Now, all we have to do, and this is one of those things that I think gets a little confusing until you actually do it, but I'm going to make us a nice big space here. And all we have to do is come over to where our lab 10 was, right? And we're not going to get the insert statement. We're going to get the actual select statement, right? I'm going to grab the select statement, that first little bit we did, and I'm going to put it right in here. Because basically we're using our select statement as kind of like a little fake table, right? So we're going to say merge into rental, you know, because we're putting records into rental or updating rental. And we're going to be using this thing, and we're going to match on rental ID, which we have, you know, right here, rental ID. So when matched, then we're going to update and set. So if it's already there, we're going to update it instead of insert. Now we're going to set the last updated by equal to the last updated by, and the last update date equal to the last update date, which happens to be today, you know, or just right then. So we put that in there. And then when match does that, and when not match, we're going to insert. Now he has like the next val in here for you, so on and so forth. And you know, you have to fill in the rest. Well, but because we actually already have done this, let's not reinvent the wheel. So we're going to come down here to where we actually do the insert, because you'll notice we do the little insert here. And what we're going to do is we're actually going to take and copy these column names. Now, this is not necessary. It's just a shortcut, because we still have to do a little manual labor here, but it's not much. So I'm going to just put these in here, and all we have to do is change the R to nothing, really. Well, the safest thing to do is to change it to source. So I would go source.contact ID, source.checkout date, and really it's just it's just rental. So if you wanted to know, you know, how do I know what this is without copying, just look at the rental table and put the column names there with source in front of it. And the reason I'm putting source is because that is what we named our subquery, right? And I'll show you where that is. So up here, what we put in these parentheses, because after we have a source, so it's now source, right? And remember, if you have an as in here, that's the actual name of the column. So like, for example, if I were to put as customer ID, then I would need to put customer ID right here. But I'm just going to leave that off. Okay, so I'm actually going to take this, copy it, and let's just see how we did. Oop, looks like something didn't copyright. Because it tried to let's do this. Oh, it's that semicolon. Make sure you don't get the semicolon, or else that will goof it up. Because I had copied the semicolon. So let's try again. So I got an invalid table name, right? And I'm guessing that it's meaning this last updated by, because it's a little ambiguous. So what we're going to do is we're going to say target dot last updated by and target dot last updated date. And we're going to try again. And what's really nice is I don't even have to clean up every time after this, right? So you'll notice that it just said 4,681 rows merged. Well, I'm just going to put this in here again, 4,681 rows merged. It's going to say that every time. And then if I do select count from rental, 4,688 rows. And I can run this as many times as I want. And select count from rental, and I'll always get the same number of rows. So for people here, does that make sense, what we're doing here? Do the merges make sense? Okay, perfect. And like I said, this is kind of a big example, because we're using a select statement instead of just another table. So if you don't know, or you just like want to make sure that you're well grounded, just go and Google like SQL merge, And it will. There's lots of good resources out there on it, like tons. Just know that we're taking two tables, one that's kind of our base table that's going to kind of be the permanent one, and then one that we're using to import from. And we match on a specific column or multiple columns. And when they're matched, we do whatever we say here. And when they're not matched, we do whatever we say here. So in this case, when it's matched, we're going to update it. And when it's not matched, we're going to insert it. It's pretty common thing to do because, we're importing from somewhere else, basically. Keeping information current is essentially what we're doing. Okay, so let's take a look at step 2, which is pretty much going to be the same thing, right? I'm actually going to pull it up over here so I can copy it. So we're going to take this. And once again, we're just I'm going to give myself some rows. We're going to paste it in there. Then we're going to go to our lab 10. And we are going to go to step 2. Right? Now on this one, you may have done this, you do a select count instead of the insert. So if you have like a select count from with that, you're going to pull the inside select statement. So let's pull that, and I'm going to make this bigger for us here, put it in there. Don't have a semicolon this time, so we should be good. And then once again, I'm gonna steal from our select statement list for our columns for our inserts, because it's just easier to, and this one has some as's, so this one might not be as easy, but we'll do it anyways. So on this one, we want to make sure we take out so on this one, we want to leave the column name, but take out the actual stuff. Now you could do this two ways. You could leave the trunk sysdate in there, and it would actually pull the same thing. But where we already gave them names, and it knows them by their names, we're just gonna do that. So in this case, we're gonna say source.rental ID, and I'm gonna cheat, and I'm gonna use copy and paste. Just like that. Now, the reason why I'm not doing it on this top one is because we're pulling that off the sequence, right? So we don't care about that at all. So let's take this. Oh, no, good call. We do want to take those out. We want to take out the aliases from the inside one because those will throw an error. Thank you. Nice catch. Because like I said, once we give it the alias of source, it doesn't care about any of these inside tables. It's like they don't exist. It thinks that this select statement is a legit table in the database. And there we go. We get lots of rows merged, right? And we can do that over and over and over again. And we should always get the same number of rows. So if I do select count from rental item, we will always get the 11,000 whatever number of rows. All right, and then we have our last one, which is step 3, which we're going to do the same thing for. And step 3 should be the exact same as all the others have been. And we've made it this far. Why not just go a little bit more? So let's go over to our lab 10, and we're going to do same old, same old. We're going to grab our select statement. Now you'll notice that this one has a group by in it. We want to keep that group by, right? And the other thing that you'll notice is that this one has a, let's see, where is it? Okay. We just need to go to there. This one has a little alias at the end that's really not used right now. So just make sure you only go from parenthesis to parenthesis on that one. All right. So we put that in there. And the reason that the group by is going to work in here is because, remember, we're just building a table and we're calling it source. So that'll work. And then we say blah, blah, blah. Let's get our, so then we come down to the insert section and we are going to pull everything except for the ID, the transaction ID, because we've already got it taken care of right there. And then we're going to change T dot to source dot. Source and source. All right, let's see how we do. And we get our 4,681 rows merged. And again, just to show you, we can run that many times and it will always just keep doing it. So now here's where the part of the lab gets a little bit different. Okay, so it says after running the first 3 steps, you need to put the 3 merge statements into a single upload transaction procedure. So I know we've seen these before, but we haven't really talked too much about them in a way, because a lot of times we use them, and I've kind of explained them, but this is the first time that we're going to use them, and it's actually really going to make sense to us, right? So let's say that we wanted to do a nightly import, just like we've been talking about. We want to make sure our information in our database is updated nightly from our point of sale, which is exactly what this is. This is our point of sale system communicating with our database. So what we want to do is we want to build a procedure, which is a function, right? We want to build something that makes it quick and easy for us, because all this work is in a file, yeah, but we want to save this to the database. So instead of going to our terminal and, type in at apply Oracle lab 11.sql, or whatever, we can just come in here and just say execute upload transaction. Okay. We just want to say boom and have it run. And the nice thing is it's more than just saving the typing. It's actually, we're going to build in a whole little piece to it, right? So let's come here to our demo lab 11. So we've got our three statements. Now what we're going to do is, again, we're going to kind of copy and paste this thing. And he's kind of got it here for us. So I'm going to take and copy and paste this procedure outline, right? And so real quick, I just want to explain what this does. So create or replace procedure upload transaction. It just creates it. Is create or replace procedure upload transaction is as follows, is essentially what we're saying. And it says create or replace because once we enter this in there, it's saved just like a table. But the difference is like a table, you know, if you try to recreate it, it'll say, oh, it already exists. Well, on these, we can actually say create or replace. And instead of having to drop the procedure before we create it, it'll actually just update it with whatever we have here. So it's a little bit nicer. The reason it lets us do this and not tables is because we're not going to lose a million rows by typing one extra word, right? So anyways, we don't need to drop this one. We can just use create or replace, and it will just update it every time. Begin just marks the beginning of the execution block. This is very similar to a curly brace. If you're familiar with any other programming language, essentially what we're doing is this. That's begin and that's end, right? And I'm actually going to throw that in a comment right there so you can see it. So begin is basically a curly brace that opens, and end is essentially the closing curly brace. All right, and then we have our transaction stuff. So right here we have save point, and we call it starting point. And I think I've talked about this, but just to make sure that everyone understands, save point is a save game. Just like as if you were playing, you know, I mean, you couldn't save in Donkey Kong Country, but imagine one of the hardest video games you played, and you're going into the final boss. You know, you always save, so that way if you die, you have a place to come back to, and it's like you never died, right? Well, that's what we're doing here, is we're saying, look, create a save point, because if something goes wrong, we want to pretend like it never happened. Because what if we inserted into rental and rental item, but then transaction failed, and we didn't have that save point? Well, we would then have to figure out, okay, which rentals and rental items did I put in? Because we need to delete those, or else it's going to break everything, right? Or let's say that rental, you know, basically it just gums up everything. We're going to have orphaned rows is what it's called, or rows that don't connect, rows that aren't complete, because a transaction is dependent upon all these things. So anyways, we create a save point, and then we do our stuff. We merge into rental item, and transaction, right? And this is where we're going to actually take and put our stuff. So let's go here up to step 1, and I'm just going to take that work I already did. We're going to take that, and we're just going to put it right here. Boom. Let's go get number 2. Boom. And let's get number 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, so then our work happens, right? When we run this procedure, our work happens. And then the last step is it has this commit. So if it makes it to this point, it says save it. Make it permanent. Because if we made it this far, then everything worked. Because then down here we have this exception block. So this exception block only runs when there's an error. So basically we're saying, look, if there's any error, when any error, then we're going to roll back to our starting point. So if anything bad happens, go back to that save point we made before we did anything. That's what we do. And then you'll notice there's this little forward I can't even remember the name of it right now. Huge brain freeze right there. Anyways, that is important. You need to make sure that stays there. It's not a typo. It's how it exits. It's what makes sure it runs good. Okay, so I'm actually going to save this at this point, and I'm going to run this whole thing. All right, you'll notice that we get this procedure created. Now, let's say that for whatever reason I broke something. It's the same as before. If you get something that says procedure created with compilation errors, then that means that there's something went wrong. So like, let's say that I accidentally deleted that, right? So let's run it. And you'll notice that it says procedure created with compilation errors. If you get that, just type show errors. And it will tell you. And it'll say identifier commie must be declared. We're going to fix that. Anyway, so let's rerun that so we can make sure we're all good. and then the procedure created, right? And then for step B of that, we just want to execute it, right? Because we created the procedure, but it didn't run. So now we want to execute it. And we just know that'll run it. And then they actually have you check it. So let's actually just put that in here, just for fun. So basically what we do is we run it. We run the procedure. We check the counts. We run the procedure, check the counts, and then that's it. Basically, we just want to make sure that they stay the same. So let's see how we did. So it says execute upload transaction, and there we go. But what happened there? Oh, did I not copy it all? No, I did not. Those semicolons, they're important. Oh, and someone caught me in the chat. Thank you. There we go. And you'll notice that my counts stay the same every time it runs, which is it's exactly what we want. All right. And then for the last step, this is going to be up to you guys. This is kind of like the little challenge of the lab per se. And just so you know, I'm super lenient on grading this. Don't spend a whole lot of time on, like, don't get stuck and be like freaking out all week trying to get this figured out. Like, if you need help, just ask, because we will, I can definitely help you through it. But I'm going to leave this section up to you guys. Because it is kind of fun, but basically we're going to calculate how much money we made and then how much money we would make if we made 10% more or 20% more. This is stuff that really is going to be good to know. Like if you're going in to apply for a job, maybe stuff to know, because, or if you, once you get a job, because they probably won't ask you stuff like this too much, but in interviews. But this is the kind of stuff that like your boss is going to want to know, or it's stuff you can get brownie points from. Is this stuff. So kind of fun. All right. So what if I got 9,362 rows for transaction? What could be the reason? It looks like they're doubled because let's just see here. Calculator. If we take 4,681 times it by 2, we get 9,362. So for whatever reason, they're being duplicated. And it could have been that during lab 10, you didn't clean up after the insert, and so you actually inserted twice. Or it could be something wrong with the actual query itself. But essentially, you're duplicating every row. So yeah, that's kind of a hard one to pinpoint. If you can't find it, just let me know. But essentially, check your. In fact, a good way to know would be to do a select everything from transaction as of lab 10. And instead of select everything, let's do select count. That's better. Do a select from transaction before lab 10 and see where we're at. Do one before lab 10, after lab 10, and then before lab 11, and then after lab 11. Because essentially what we want is once we do the insert in lab 10, we want this to be 4,681. And actually, one thing that I forgot to mention is up here. You'll notice that in lab 11, we're skipping lab 10. So in your call to the previous lab, completely skip lab 10, because lab 10 was just a a workout to get the work for this one so we don't have to do it all in one lab. So just skip calling lab 10 altogether because that might be your issue as well. Just call straight to lab 9. All right, good stuff. Any other questions? Okay, so aggregation. Aggregation is, and honestly, the best way is probably just to define aggregation. So let's just go to a dictionary, Webster. And we're going to go to aggregate. All right. So basically what we're doing is we're doing the verb, right? Because we're going to aggregate things, is to collect or gather into a mass or whole. So basic, and this is another one, to amount to a sum, a whole sum or total. But basically, you've probably seen this before. Anytime you see something that says, "Oh, this is an aggregate function," it's a function that takes multiple rows and combines them into smaller amounts. So, for example, I'm guessing you're asking because of step 5, we're going to have some functions that sum. Because if we look, let's open this back up. If we look at what's in here, if I do a select amount from transaction, or what is it? Transaction amount. So if I select transaction amount from transaction, you'll notice that we get 4,681 rows, right? Well, let's say we want to aggregate those, right? And we're going to use an aggregate function. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and I'm going to put this in a different one here just in case I typo something. But what we're going to do is we're going to use a little aggregate function. So let's select, and then we want to select what we want to group these by first. So let's say let's group it by payment method type. So we're going to say payment method type, and let's say that I want to know how much money was made, how much money was gathered for each method type. Okay, so and then I'm going to say the sum of transaction amount. Now what this is this is an aggregate function, and let's call that total. Now because we're using an aggregate function, we need to use a group by because it needs to know a way to combine those rows together, right? Because here, let's do this. Let's get the transaction amount and the transaction method type. Oop. What did I do wrong? Payment method type. I am struggling. There we go. So you can see there's a lot of 1028s here. Hopefully there's different ones than that, but it's not looking like it. So we'll see, right? But essentially what you can see is there's a bunch. Well, basically what we're going to do is we're going to break these all down and get the total number of amount for each method type. So we're going to say group by payment method type. And that's aggregation right there. And let's do this. It wasn't going to show them because we only had one, right? Let's try one that's funner. So let's try payment account number. Which one is our, let's try transaction account. So we're going to just switch this. And basically what we're going to do, let's say that, let's say we want to aggregate it to kind of see like, okay, who are our highest paying customers, right? And one, well, that's not going to work either. Let's do it by date. That's a good one. Transaction date. We want to know what our best selling days are and our lowest selling days are, right? What are the days when we did the best? And so there we have how much money we made on each day that was in our database. Now, again, we wanted to see which one was our best and which one was our worst. So let's order by the sum of transaction amounts. And let's go descending because we want the best first. All right, so here is our results. So we can see that our best day, we did $306, and that was the 21st of March. So here you can see that, you know, there's certain days that we did better on and some that not so much. But that's aggregation because let's see the longhand version of this. So you can see that's 344 rows. So let's select transaction date and transaction amount from transaction. And now we get 4,681 rows. So the aggregation is that we took 4,681 rows and combined data together, aggregated data together to break it down or to aggregate it to 344 rows. Basically, aggregation is meaning you're losing specificity, but making it easier to view the overall data. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions? Going once, going twice, and sold. All right, so that's basically the lab for the week. It should be pretty. That last step will actually be way fun. The rest of the lab, if you're done with lab 10, is really easy, right? So super easy. Yeah, so it's basically a copy and paste from lab 10. So if lab 10's working, you're golden. You're there. So basically, all you've got to do is get through that copy paste stuff, and then you get to have a little fun with step 5. So anyways, good luck everybody this week. And again, if you get stuck on lab 5, put something in Slack because like I said, it can be complicated and just little hints go a long way. So if you get stuck, don't beat your head against the wall. Don't be locked up on a sunny day in your dungeon trying to get it figured out by yourself. Just ask for help and get it figured out.